Her arm was not in. Well, her right arm leapt out and grabbed the only thing it could. It grabbed the rope of the bell on the lich gate, and the bell pealed loudly across the lands as Gudrun hung on for dear life. Well, backwards and forwards, forwards and backwards, Gudrun was pulled this way and that, the deacon on one side, the rope on the other, pulling her until it was clear something had to give way, the sleeve, the rope, or Gudrun. And so it was, with a loud rip, the fabric of her cloak gave up, and the deacon tumbled back into the grave and was covered in earth. Well, everybody came out running, hearing the struggle up by the lich gate, running in dread disaster, fearing some dread disaster, and all they found was a terrified girl. Well, they knew what has to have happened. They all realised it was the ghost of the deacon of Dark River who was bothering Gudrun at this time. And indeed, he carried on bothering her, for when Gudrun went home, he would come each night by twilight, and he would stand in the eaves of the house and shout up to Gudrun, "Gudrun, Gudrun, Gudrun, my love, come join me in the quiet of the grave." And Gudrun would cower inside, in a special room the priest made for her. Well, the priest and the bishop tried what they could. They tried exorcising the spirit by bell, by book, and by candle, but with no avail. And then the bishop of the area, who was a very wise man, had a certain man who dwelt up in holy Snedefell, a follower of the old ways come down. And he called a great rock to be put at the corner of the house, and then took position near the eaves. And sure enough, as always, the deacon was in his place as twilight came. "Gudrun, Gudrun, Gudrun, come join me in the quiet of the grave." When out stepped the priest, and in a series of mighty incantations, he drove the deacon back along the length of the house, back to the corner where the boulder was, and in a silent, magnificent fiat, he had the boulder roll over the deacon, covering him utterly. And men say, I fear, he is still there. And Gudrun certainly no more heard anything from him. So, I suppose the moral of this tale, if it has a moral, if ever you find yourself in Iceland, do leave the stones at peace, for you never know who's dwelling underneath. Now that was a story I have never read. I say I never read it. I actually came to read it relatively recently in a book of Icelandic folk tales. And it was there, but I do the Magnus Magnusson translation, which is, I kind of think, is better. Well, we are with Sid Dior presenting in a slightly low-tech studio, i.e. nothing is working like music, apart from us and our voices. So we're going to do rather a lot of storytelling. First of all, as we are talking about storytelling today, all the stories we are doing, unless we tell you, are from memory. Exeter and Devon are, of course, peculiarly blessed, as they are with lots of artists, with storytellers. There are very many good companies, just to mention a few.
Well, yes, there's Dave Oliver and John Freeman of the wonderful Tyburn Jig Theatre, and they use puppetry. They have some wonderful costumes. They do a Victorian show and a sort of King Arthur show up in Tintagel Castle and all sorts. And there is Michael and Wendy Dacre of Raven Tales, who, as we've mentioned before, do shadow puppetry with their tales.
And there is Clive Pick, just a little bit further west.
Clive Pick, the storyteller, who brings in sort of amazing music.
And is a one-man Hollywood movie. His ability to get a close-up on his face, just in normal daylight, is one of the most remarkable things I think I've ever seen in storytelling.
He sort of captures an audience as soon as he just walks onto the stage.
And he's one of the storytellers who's got a gift for being able to write stories as if they were traditional stories. We'll talk a bit about that in a minute, actually, whether you can write new stories or not. My own personal experience is you can, but it is actually very, very hard.
Oh, it is very difficult.
And then if you go further west, you get the wonderful Stone Soup, who have an open mic in Plymouth, which you can go and see from time to time. And they are wonderful. They have a real good banter going on between them.
Twisted Tales and Mutley Plain in Plymouth.
And of course Exeter. Those of you who are keen on storytelling, or have just come and encountered it for the first time, if you want to know more, it has a wonderful storytelling club, we call it. It's not really a club, anyone can turn up, which is...
It's upstairs at the Globe on Clifton Road in Newtown.
It's in Newtown, yeah.
It's free for tellers and £3 to listen.
And it's always the first Wednesday of the month. Absolutely worth it. We always tell there. Well, we always tell there in this winter when we're not so busy. And it's brilliant because you'll get storytellers, lots of professionals, but anybody can tell, and everybody is welcome to tell, and lots of people have.
It's a wonderful, encouraging environment, isn't it? And it's a great performance lab. If you're sort of, as a storyteller, if you want to go there and sort of shoot it past people, see if it works, or do something that you haven't had a chance to do.
So, for instance, next time I've built a new very large body mask which is currently dominating the lounge and messing up the garden and all kinds of other things, and I shall trial it for the very first time in the next story club and actually see whether it's too heavy, which is I've got a fear, or whether it will work. I think it is probably time for another story, don't you think so, Widsith? Do you think we can do Lady Mary?
Well, I was wondering about another poem from the Exeter book, actually.
All right, another poem from the Exeter book, and then we will talk a little bit about traditional storytelling versus writing new stories.
And this is a magnificent piece from the Exeter book. It's over 1,000 years old, and it's a lament of exile. And this is not all by any means, but this is part of The Wanderer, which is most magnificent and overlooked because The Seafarer is the one that's on the same theme that's often
that's
famous.
The one
because
down at the quay, isn't it? The Seafarer. It is. It's down on the buoy and the quay.
Oh yes, I see what you mean. On the public arts sort of sculpture, on the way they've sort of put things around the buoy down there when they moved it. Yes, and lit it up with LED lights and that. Yes, it is. But it's also the one that was used by Ezra Pound. So. It is more famous, and so I think The Wanderer is often...
this is The Wanderer by Widsith.
Alone am I driven each day before daybreak to give my cares utterance. None are there now among the living to whom I dare declare me thoroughly. Too truly I know it is in a man no mean virtue that he hold his heart, says hold his thought, or think as he may. No weary mind may stand against weird, nor may will work new hope. Wherefore most often those eager for fame bind the dark mood fast in their breast. So must I also curb my mind, cast off from country from kind far distant by cares overworn, bind it in fetters this since. Long ago the ground shroud enwrapped my gold friend. Wretched I went thence, winter wearied, over the waves bound. Dreary I sought hall of a gold giver, him who in mead hall might take heed of me, furnish comfort to a man friendless, win me with cheer. He knows who makes trial how harsh and bitter is care for companion, to him who hath few friends to shield him. He knows this who is forced to forego his lords, his friends' counsels, to lack them for long. Oft sorrow and sleep banded together come to bind the lone outcast. He thinks in his heart then that he his lord clasps and kisses, and on the knee lies hand and head, as he had at other whiles in days now gone when he enjoyed the gift stool. Awakening after this friendless man, sees before him fallow waves, seabirds bathing, brooding out feathers, snow and hail swirl, hoarfrost falling. Then all the heavier his heart's wounds, sore for his loved lord's sorrow freshens. Storms break on the stone hillside, the ground bound by driving sleet, winter's wrath. Then wanness comes, nightshade spreads, sends from north the rough hail to harry mankind. In the earth realm all is crossed, Weird's will changes the world. Wealth is lent us, friends are lent us, man is lent, kin is lent. All this earth's frame shall stand empty.
A dreadful threat, if you were a friendless man and alienated your lord, invites Viking England by my colleague Widsith from the wonderful, wonderful Exeter book. So Widsith, do you think it is possible to write new tales?
I do, but I think it's very hard to make.
I know she's vested interest here, by the way. She performs new tales.
I do, but I've been guilty of writing one or two folktale style tales myself.
What's the problem then?
Well, the thing is, because most people are used to writing literary short stories, as I am, they're in a written style, and however much you're imbibed with sort of oral poetry or oral storytelling, the dominant culture around us is that of a literary culture.
So what happens if you just simply learn a story? If I went out and learned a story?
Well, I've heard people, we both at the Story Club and elsewhere heard people doing that, and in a way it's most impressive, but it has to be said it is reciting, because there's too much embellishment, there's too much literary detail, there's not the pace, there's not the repetition structure, there's no possibility of a chorus or joining in.
So do you change your stories when you perform?
Radically, absolutely radically.
Okay.
I mean, I do...